Hello, everyone. Welcome to our YouTube channel. I'm Deborah Maldonado, and I'm here with the lovely Dr. Rob.
Yeah, welcome, YouTubers. It's exciting for us to be here. We've been wanting to do a podcast on video for a while, and we're finally getting around to it, so welcome.
Yes, and today's podcast, since it's Valentine's month, we're going to be talking about love, romantic love, and the title of this is The Myth of Mr. Right, and the Truth of Romantic Attraction. Because, we've been doing relationship coaching for many, many years. And I have to tell you, Rob, when I first started, before I met you, I would meet people on, dating and stuff. And the question would always be, why are you still single? You ask your friends, why are you still single? Why are you still single? And my blanket answer was always, I haven't met the right person yet. And so that is, I think, the biggest myth is that there's some right person that's going to swoop in and all of your relationship issues will go away and they're just going to save you from all that heartache.
Yeah.
And so what do you think about that idea?
Well, let me just preface this. If you're new to our work, our ideas might sound a little different, let's say, to put it mildly. But our work is really based on Jungian psychology, Eastern philosophy, and our current understanding of neuroscience. So it comes, let's say, from the information that we provide comes from a very different perspective than the typical kind of social perspective of attraction and attachment.
So I want to ask you your opinion. I don't think I've ever asked you this question. Did anyone ever ask you as a man why you are still single? And what was your answer?
Yeah, the answer was always evasive because we don't really know, especially when we are in those situations. You can make up a lot of different reasons. But what was
your reason?
I think it was, it changed probably, but essentially it was that I had met the right one.
Yes, yes.
Which is the typical kind of answer that you hear in movies or stories, or the people that we work with in our coaching. They often tell us that this idea, right, that I'm single because I haven't met the right one.
Mr. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we will see people and they'll say, well, I met my soulmate, but he didn't want me. And they'll just hang on to this relationship that is not really good for them because they think they're their soulmate or there's a special attraction and, that they feel they never felt this way about someone. And you don't understand. I've never felt this way about someone. So they must be right. And I think, one of the things that we talk about in our work is the idea of attraction, like what makes us attracted to someone? What makes us want to be with them? And it's this chemistry that is created unconsciously. A lot of people, you probably know this, you can't choose who you fall in love with by default. You're going to be drawn to people based on your early conditioning, your early relationship patterns. You're going to hook up or be attracted to people that match deeper parts of yourself.
Right, but here's the kicker.
What's the kicker?
That people think that chemistry is giving them something real. Now, there's nothing wrong with chemistry. We don't want to get rid of it or dispel that whole idea of there's this special chemistry going on between people. But when you look at it, what is chemistry? What is that surge of neurotransmitters and hormones that is occurring when we're attracted to somebody? It's really you're reacting to your past conditioning. The other person fits like a puzzle piece into your psychology, and it triggers that cascade of neurotransmitters and hormones that we call chemistry, and it transports us out of our ordinary sense of life.
Here's something that I noticed is that I was attracted. I didn't feel like my father, loved me enough. Like he didn't show me love. He did love me, and we resolved all that. But in the beginning, he didn't demonstrate, like he wasn't very emotional. So I was constantly seeking that man to give me that approval that I felt like my father didn't give me. And it was very unconscious. And so, but the kicker is that another kicker is that I kept attracting men who wouldn't show me because that's what I was used to. So we're kind of working against ourselves because we're trying to complete something that is incomplete within ourselves through another person, but we're attracting the same pattern that started the incompletion in the first place. So it feels like this constant, you're on a gerbil wheel and you're never getting that really sense of love back. And I think the main thing is that we think that other person, that Mr. Right or Ms. Right or Mrs. Right, if you want to have an affair, that person is going to fill in that gap for you. They're going to give you something you don't already have. And we always say you're bringing yourself to the relationship, and you're the central piece of what happens in that relationship. No other person can give you something that you can't really provide for yourself or see that yourself is worthy.
Right. So right off the bat, we're starting off with the false reaction of our body. And that's very much proven, or let's say supported by current research into neuropsychology and the way we make decisions.
The false reaction of our body.
Yes,
absolutely. Our bodies and their feelings are setting us in a direction.
Yes. Now, at a higher level, let's say at the psychological cognitive level, what's happening is projection. Now, again, we don't want to dismiss that incredible emotion that we feel when we're in love and simply say, well, it's a projection. But you have to understand the way the mind works. When we meet this person that transfixes us, right? We fall in love. We project our divinity, all our hopes, all our aspirations of a perfect being onto this individual. That's why it's so amazing.
Person, right? It feels good, and the person feels good because you're giving them all that energy. And you, when someone loves you that way, for some people, if you love yourself, it feels good. But if you don't really care about it, you feel insecure, it's very uncomfortable for someone to do that.
Absolutely. And so if you don't understand projection, you really don't understand relationships. There's no way to understand that kind of attraction and bonding without understanding projection. Now, again, we're not saying that because it's a projection that it's not real. We're simply saying that that is the nature of our experience. That is what we are experiencing when we fall in love. And in essence, that's the way nature set it up for us, so that we could, it would give us time to really get to know each other and bond at that deeper level.
And so we think, we're going through profiles, or we're meeting people in the public. A friend wants to set us up. We go on a date, and we think we're making these rational choices that, I have a little chemistry. I used to call it my flurfy meter. Like if I felt a little flurfy, I called it. It's like those little butterflies. I was like, he must be it because I'm feeling this feeling. And so then we make these decisions on who to swipe left and right with, who we're drawn to. Right. We have different types, but it always feels like it's the same pattern over and over because our unconscious is driving us there. So we're not making these rational, logical decisions, and we're driven by what we call unconscious chemistry. And so when we think about, how do we get to change that? And I think the first thing we have to understand is the three levels of relationships. There's the person you bring in. We call it the pre-attraction mindset. Like, what are you bringing in? Then the attraction happens, that you see someone and you see them maybe physically or psychologically, that you're compatible with them, and there's this flirtatiousness and attraction, sexual attraction, and there's a lot of fun in that. You can be dating and we're having sex, and just texting and, that fun part of dating. And then you get to the highest level, which is that bonding and intimacy, or there's a higher level after that, but that bonding and intimacy where you're really making a commitment. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, they kind of stay in that playful attraction mode, and they never get to that bonding and commitment level. And they wonder why. They wonder, why don't I get to that level? And we have to go and look at what's that pre-attraction mindset before we're even attracted. What are we bringing into the relationship that's stopping us here and keeping us here versus letting us go to that bonding stage?
Yeah. I think a simple way to think about it is that at that deeper level, let's say pre-attraction, mm-hmm. who are you and what are you bringing to the table? You're essentially bringing your past conditioning in the form of stored emotional imprints. Mm. In your unconscious mind, you have your history written out, mm-hmm. all the events, all you've learned from your past, plus your genetics and epigenetics. You're bringing all that to the table. And the results that you've been getting essentially reflect that internal mind.
Mm-hmm. And so I love the metaphor that you use for this, because I think people think, well, if I just think positive and I love myself, and someone says there that, you just have to feel good about yourself, that's not enough because there's unconscious is having a whole different story. So here's, think about a tree. There's the roots, there's the trunk, the branches, and then the fruit. Now, when we think about the tree, the fruit is really reflecting our results. So the type of relationships we get into, are they short-term? Are they the person's always cheating? Or is it true love? Or is it I'm alone all the time? The branches are the actions that you take to get love or to date and all that. Are you taking lots of action? It's like kind of the hands, like a movement. Yeah. And then when you get to the trunk, that's really under, going deeper into the foundation. It's our thoughts and feelings that we bring into love and relationships that we're conscious of.
Yeah.
Now, what's underneath that? What's in the roots? It's the core emotions that we are not aware of unconsciously. They're actually driving the thoughts and feelings that we're conscious of. They're making us take actions, and they're giving us the fruit. So a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll follow dating tips, which please throw your dating tip book out. Stop listening to them. They have nothing to do with whether you find love or not. You don't have to worry about being too needy or being too anxious for love or being insecure. All that stuff doesn't really matter. It really is the core readiness and your heart being open. And that's where that root emotion is. And so a lot of people will change behavior. They'll be like, well, I'll go out and date more. I'll go on 50 dates. Or, I hear dating coaches say, my coach is making me go on 20 dates a week. And, like more volume is going to change your results. And then a lot of people think, well, I'm going to think more positive. I'm going to put myself in my happy place. I'm going to be in happy feelings and consciously, try to change the surface. But what we're really doing is just rearranging the furniture on the surface, and we're not getting to the root. So the root is where the pre-attraction mindset is.
Yeah, that's where the good stuff is.
Yeah. And so what is it about that core emotion? Like, what can we share about that really impacts someone's results in love?
So I would say the main principle to keep in mind when working or thinking through this, what are the core emotions that I'm bringing into a relationship? It has to do with our assumptions about who we are, mm-hmm. and what we can expect from others. Mm-hmm. I mean, in general, the world, but in a relationship, the beloved becomes the world, mm-hmm. right? They become the fixation point upon which we experience the world of others.
And it does feel that way when you fall in love. They consume your whole consciousness. Like when you first meet, you're just thinking about them all the time and relating to them. So I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. So
anyway.
So the next step is, if this is the case, right, if we're dealing with, let's say, stored unconscious emotions that are going to be projected onto the beloved, then we have to be able to look at that part before we get into a relationship. Otherwise, you'll play out the same pattern that you played out before. It's a natural law. If nothing changes inside, nothing really is going to change outside. You might get some variation on the results, but essentially the same pattern plays out.
So we've identified, a lot of where does these core emotions happen? How do we relate to the world? And there's been a lot of research in attachment theory. If you're in a relationship, personal development, you probably heard about it. John Bowlby, who developed it. And we found that, there's insecure and secure attachment styles. And, there's a lot of ways we can look at that. But I want to just simplify that a little bit. And we came up with 2 questions that if you answer those questions, the way you answer those questions will determine exactly your results in relationships. So you want to do the first question?
So the first question is really simple. Do I feel worthy of love? All right. Simple yes or no.
And you could say kind of, or, halfway. Sometimes I feel worthy some days, sometimes I don't, or 0. Just kind of think about from a level of 1 to 5, but yes or no.
Yeah, people are usually very clear. They know if they feel worthy or if they don't when they really ask the question. The other question?
Do I feel that others are trustworthy with my heart? So it's really about, do I trust others with my heart? Is that yes or no?
Right.
And so let's look at those 2 questions. And basically, there's 4 categories that people fall into. If you said yes to both, that means you have a healthy attachment and you probably have a good relationship. It doesn't mean you have the ultimate relationship or true love, like from a deep spiritual sense, because you're really, you're kind of defaulted to match up that way. So there's always another level. So it doesn't mean like, okay, I said yes to both, I'm done. But there is another level of love. So, but then you're basically, in a good spot if you're saying yes. And you have to be honest. Some people lie to themselves and they think, yeah, I feel worthy. But then if you look at their patterns, they don't really. So really, truly be honest. No one's looking at your answers. So yes and yes. So what if you feel unworthy of love, but you trust the world and you trust others with your heart? Now that was me. I would feel so like insecure. I didn't feel like I was lovable enough, but I trusted others because my mom was always there for me. And so I really had this trust that people would take care of me. So I ended up being this person that would fall easily for people and not really look for red flags and always try to make everything work and hang on to long-term relationships. So that would be someone who doesn't feel worthy, but they trust. And so they kind of jump into relationships over and over and over again. The third quadrant is that you trust others, you trust the world. You feel worthy, but you don't trust others.
But you don't trust others. In that case, essentially no one would be good enough. You'll always find an excuse to why that relationship is not good for you. Because you feel worthy, but you can't really trust others. So in other words, you're always holding back. You're always saying, I'm not going to give my heart away because there's a danger I might get broken by this person. I don't trust them. Now, this is not a logical thought running in your head, essentially. This is unconscious assumptions.
Yeah, you don't even realize.
Yeah.
Well, here's an example. A lot of our clients are very successful. So they feel really worthy. They've accomplished a lot in their life. If that's you have degrees and you have success. And you really, your friends are telling you you're too picky,
right? And
you wonder like, why am I not getting dates? Or you're very picky of who you are, admittingly picky. You want someone very specific. You might feel that you don't want someone to come in to mess up your life. And a lot of people, tell us that they're going to come in and I have this, nice financial situation. I have this house that I bought myself and I'm independent. And why would I risk all that to bring some random crazy man into my life that's going to take my heart or distract me or take me away from my purpose or my mission? So there, and of course, you might not even be conscious of it, but think about if you do feel worthy, you might feel that maybe you just don't trust that someone's going to take care of you. And that's probably why you're so successful, because you decided, I'm going to take care of myself. So it really is, yeah.
So the fourth quadrant.
Oh, this is the tougher one.
You don't feel worthy of love, and you don't trust others. Mm-hmm. That's when you're really kind of not seeing much out there. Mm-hmm. You know, as far as results, as far as the fruit of that tree, you're essentially not going to see many opportunities for relationships, because you're first of all, you don't feel worthy, which means you don't see the opportunities around you. We know from research that when we have those unconscious assumptions, it narrows our focus down to only see the opportunities or the situations that match our assumptions.
Yes. So if you don't feel worthy, you'll feel like everyone's rejecting you. Mm-hmm. No one wants someone. You hear people say, I'm too old. I'm not thin enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not successful enough. I'm too dramatic. I have something, like a lot of people who've done a lot of therapy and work on themselves, they kind of feel broken in a way. And we don't want you to feel that way. That this is, this is a coaching model, is about potential. But a lot of people do feel like, because of circumstances that happen to them, that there's something kind of defunct about them. Mm-hmm. And so they just feel like there's no one that's going to accept them. And also, then they don't trust that anyone's, because they've been let down so many times. So it kind of feeds itself.
Right, because even when the opportunity arises, you will reject it, essentially. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, this is unconscious. So it's not necessarily a thought that you'll have a reasoning. The reason actually comes in afterwards. Mm-hmm. We know that the mind actually creates a little narrative after it's decided, no, I cannot trust this person.
Yes. So here's what I think some people have questions, and how do you know which category you fall into? Well, look at the fruits, look at the results, and you have to ask yourself those questions. Do I feel worthy of love? And you may not even really at first not sure how to answer that. Just close your eyes for a minute and just go into yourself and just say, do I feel worthy? Like, what's the answer? Like, what's the first answer that comes to your mind? And that's usually your core answer, which is usually like immediately you'll feel like, it's not really a hard yes. and you're really looking for a hard yes or a hard no. Then ask yourself, do I trust myself, my heart with others? And look at your life. Look at, if you're not in a relationship right now, look at other people. Look at, do you trust your boss? Do you trust your friends? Are you always like worried about like making sure, you're not going to get scammed, that type of thing? If you're highly hyper vigilant about worrying about people like stealing your identity or something like that, those people that kind of feel worried about someone's going to take advantage of them, maybe afraid to receive and afraid to let someone do things for you. That's not trusting. So those two, and then what we need to do is we have to go to the emotion around that. And that's what we do in our work. It's a process. Obviously, we can't do it all in one YouTube video, but we want to let you know that if you can get to that emotion, that core emotion, and start uncovering it. And here's another thing, we're not getting rid of the emotion. We're bringing it up. We're making it conscious so we can see it, so we can know, what is this about? And so we have some great tools to work with in our work on emotions. If you want to find out more, we have a video, some links below to our work if you want to find out more. But we wanted to just have a quick chat today and tell you about the myth of Mr. Right and the psychology of romantic attraction. And I just want to see if we have any other questions. You guys give great advice. Yes, worthy but distrusting, spot on. And then pattern. Do you think communicating this is essential? You mean communicating it to other people? I think you need to resolve it within yourself. I think when you resolve these, that's another thing very important. You can change these. You're not stuck in your little quadrant, and you're not stuck with the fruit. You can actually change it, and through really realizing, like, what does it mean to be worthy? How are you defining it? How are you measuring your worth? Are you measuring it if you're single or not? Are you measuring it how people treat you? And a lot of people measure it externally. They think, if people treat me nice, or people give me what I want, then I must be worthy of it. And it's from childhood. It's like, do we get what we wanted when we were kids, when we asked for what we wanted? And a lot of times we got a mixture. Sometimes our parents gave us, what we asked for, other times they denied it. And then in some cases, you felt like you got denied more than others. And if you look at your family, your siblings, they probably have different answers to, did our parents do that?
But here's where Jungian psychology comes in handy, because Jungian psychology essentially says this, and it's very simple. We wear a mask in society. Mm-hmm. Now, again, it doesn't mean that we're fake, right? A lot of people think, well, if I'm wearing a mask, that means that I'm hiding my true self. Now, in a sense, we are, but we need that mask. Mm-hmm. He calls it the persona. It's what we call the personality. It's how we communicate to other people who we are and how we feel about ourselves and what we expect of the world. But he says there's a deeper reality in our psyche, which is the shadow element. Now, in the shadow, the things that we're talking about, the emotions, that's where it resides. Though all that emotional imprint from the past is really in our unconscious mind, our personal unconscious. And that's what we're bringing to the table when we open up in relationships.
Mm-hmm. We're bringing this stuff that we're not even conscious of. That's why we get so triggered with romantic love. There's so much energy because it opens up ourselves to that. And so you can ask yourself, do I even have that experience? And that means that you haven't really tapped into that emotion. And if you are very dramatic and you feel like you fall in love and get heartbroken all the time, you haven't understood that part of yourself. So you're either not conscious of it or you're not understanding that part of yourself. And really, truly, it's not about fixing anything. It's not about forgiving your parents or they did a terrible job and you're stuck here. And it's not that you have to learn how to cope with the way you've been raised or the way you're conditioned or the way you feel about yourself, that we're all have a true potential. We all have the potential for great, true love. And it doesn't need years of therapy for you to get there. You can get there through going toward what's uncomfortable and facing those core emotions that we talk about and really changing it. So
the main question which we started off was, is there a Mr. Right? Is it a myth, or is it, what's going on there? So from all your expertise and working with so many women in the past 20 years, what's your consensus?
There are billions of Mr. Rights. And the more you are in touch with what you want and who you really are, you're going to be attracted to the person that matches that. So it could be a number of people. Here's a couple questions. The Myers, I think MTBI personalities. I think is that the Myers-Briggs kind of thing. We don't use those. The Myers-Briggs. That's really a persona, and that's not what we're really talking about here. I'm dating someone and he's very clear on some things I've been through, just like being open. Good. That's great. I study Jung a lot, actually. Okay, Matson. And so here's the thing is that you have the power to change. There's billions of Mr. Rights, maybe not billions, maybe millions, because if there were billions, then it would be 5 people. So we wanted you to just get some information here and enjoy our live call. Here's another question. I'm currently manifesting physical beauty. If I accept myself fully, will I still embody the desire, or will I stay the same? Well, physical beauty is actually subjective. Yeah, it's part of the persona. It's putting on a mask. It's not really working on the inner stuff. So keep that in mind, that the core emotions have nothing to do with beauty, have nothing to do with your age, have nothing to do with how you dress or how cool you are or how dorky you are. It's really that inner thing. And if you want to do that for yourself, but you don't have to manifest beauty to find love, because you're already beautiful. Exterior, outside the self. Yes. You want to work on the inside. And really, when we say work on it, it's not fixing anything. It's becoming more conscious, so then you can direct your life.
Great questions.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We'll be here periodically doing our podcast live on video, and we hope to see you soon. And please, if you're watching the replay, comment below. Tell us what you think. And there's some links below with some more information if you want to go deeper with this work.
Yeah, and let us know what kind of questions you want us to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of themes do you want to hear us discuss?
Yes, this has been really fun. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you soon.
See you next
Lots of
time.
love.